Welcome back to Candid Conversations. How are you doing today, Candice?
I'm doing okay. How about yourself, Chris?
Pretty good. How's your week been so far?
Really busy. I went to Lollapalooza last weekend. It was really fun. Took my 16-year-old to a music festival. So,
Nice. I was at a concert on Saturday night and a baseball game earlier in the week. So I'm back at work and trying to collect myself a little bit.
Yeah. So what are we doing today?
We are going to have another great guest here on Candid Conversations. And I believe you're going to introduce her.
I will. We are here with Joy Brownridge, a dynamic speaker and facilitator with significant expertise in leadership development, employee engagement, and workplace wellness. As Assistant Director of Organizational Effectiveness for the University of Illinois System, she serves as the operational lead for the Professional Staff Leadership Academy, partnering with CHRO on strategic direction and facilitates sessions on conflict management, values, mindfulness, and growth. She holds a degree in industrial engineering and is SHRM CP certified and is a certified facilitator for Hogan Assessments and CCL 360. Joy has led key employee engagement initiatives and presented at national conferences such as Coupa HR. Her work is driven by a passion for fostering inclusive, thriving workplaces at all levels. Welcome, Joy.
Thank you for having me. I'm sorry that HR loves a long acronym. We love long words.
They do.
We really do.
I am so pleased because there are a lot of keywords in that bio that are like right in the wheelhouse of what we talk about in this podcast. So I'm really looking forward to diving into it with you today.
Yeah.
So let's start out. Just give us a little bit of your leadership journey and like what experiences shaped the leader you are today.
Absolutely. So I would say one of the biggest things was my first career. So I as you noted, I have a bachelor's of science in industrial engineering, and I worked as a packaging engineer primarily in the automotive industry for 15 years. So that was my first career, and then, made a pivot later. But that really shaped my leadership. I learned a lot about working in a manufacturing environment, working with various people. When you're a packaging engineer, you work with everybody from people on the line to, purchasing people, project engineers. You work with everybody. So that was really the first thing that shaped my leadership journey. Absolutely.
Where did you go from there?
So from there, it's very interesting. So we talk about I'm certified in the Hogan. And one of the things about this assessment is learning pieces of your personality. And my personality is very high on wanting to have some kind of creativity and enjoyment in the workplace. And while I felt like I was really good at my job as an engineer, I absolutely hated what I did for like 9 hours a day. But the problem was I didn't necessarily know what I was going to pivot to. So I just decided, what if I found a job that I felt like I could enjoy for 9 hours a day? So I came back home to the university. I actually started in the office support line as an office support specialist. And then there was a job opening in an HR office. And while I was hesitant at first, I got that job. And that really is what allowed me to grow, because I went into training and development from there and then was able to work my way into the role that I'm in now.
Okay, fantastic. So you took that risk and that chance to do something completely different and probably step down a little bit in the process, right?
Oh, more than a little bit, right? Yeah. It was like, it was a huge cut in pay, but I had to think to myself, I'm going to be working for so many more years in my life. And like, do I want to keep delaying the inevitable? Because I didn't think that I could keep going this way, right? The last engineering job I had, I was really working on building an ulcer. And I was like, this is just not right. I have to be willing to make a big shift.
Yeah, our bodies tell us the truth, right?
They do. Yeah. They really do.
Yeah.
To really kind of be a true leader is to kind of help your team grow and succeed. So can you tell me like a pivotal moment when you realized leadership was less about managing tasks and more about influencing people?
Yes. So that was actually still while I was an engineer, because like I said, I had to speak to everybody. And I kind of developed my own little language for it. And I was like, I think packaging people are kind of like ambassadors, because everybody has different concerns and different things that they worry about on their day. If you're on the line, you're worried about getting certain number of boxes packed maybe, or without defects. If you're purchasing, you're like, here's your 12-cent budget, go forth and, make sure the parts aren't rusty or have scratches or anything. So I had to learn how to shift my language and communication to match everybody else so that we could be on the same page. And that was where I first noticed, oh, this is more about influencing people. Even though I don't necessarily have like a manager title, I was just an individual contributor, but I had a lot of influence. So I had to learn there, it's really about communication and influence.
Yeah. Did you have any mentors along the way, and like how are they influential in how you developed yourself? What did they teach you?
So I actually, for mentors, would go back before that. My biggest mentors were my mom and my dad. Those were the two people who really instilled in me a sense of excellence as really a core value, the idea of perseverance. My dad always had big words that he would use regardless of your age. So I learned perseverance by the time I was 5, right? And it was actually one of the things that he would talk about in karate classes. And so he had other kids doing it, and he's like, what does perseverance mean? You say, don't quit, sir. So that was really instilled in me at an early age. And I think that is what helped me get through some of the hard times. I mean, like I said, I worked in the automotive industry, and things were not well in the automotive industry when I was working there. And then the idea of switching over to a new career, when I started, like I said, I was really working as an assistant, but I saw the leadership program that they had just developed, and I just kind of muscled I was like, what do you have going on over here? Do you need any extra help? And how can I get involved? That inner nerd was always striving for more.
Wonderful. So what advice would you have for professionals who have recently been promoted into a leadership role without that formal leadership training?
Mm-hmm. Which we see in higher ed all the time, right?
We do, right? It's like, you were really great, and so now here's this role.
Congratulations.
Yay, you're in charge of folks. You go forth and be somebody. I would say lean into whatever resources you can. We're fortunate here at the university that people can do LinkedIn learning classes. There's lots of amazing classes, and a lot of the snippets are very short, right? So you can do that. There's Coursera. In the system office, we have a lot of soft skill classes that we offer. We do a manager training certificate that we offer. But even if you aren't at the university, you can look at YouTube, right? You can look at Google. I would say lean into other people, other classes, and then whatever mentors you can. Like, is there a leader that you really feel like you have learned something from, that you appreciate their style? See if they'll, put an hour on their calendar and talk to you about what they've done. Most people will say yes if you're like, I will buy you coffee or tea or whatever it is. You know what I mean? Like, Start with the easy, free things. It doesn't have to be so grand all the time.
Okay. So you recently published an article in Higher Ed Jobs. Mm-hmm. It's actually how Candice introduced you to me as a potential speaker here, and I took a look at that, and it's an interesting look at sort of how leaders can undermine workplace culture. What first sparked your interest in studying culture and employee engagement? And talk a little bit about the article.
Yeah. So the article is really, the top 5 ways that you might be undermining your office culture without realizing it. And I was thinking in terms of people who might be leading a team, even if the team is you and one direct report. But really anybody in the office can be affecting workplace culture for the positive or for the negative. Mm-hmm. The interest actually started in engineering because when I was in manufacturing, it's a completely different environment. I'll just say that. The culture is very different than being in higher ed, right? Yeah. And corporate is different than higher ed as well. Like when I got here and people were like, oh, we're doing this peer review, call up these other schools and find out what kind of benefits they offer. And I'm like, oh, they're just going to tell me that? And they're like, yeah, well, we share like this, but you would never see that in corporate, right? So that is another aspect of culture. But I just felt like as an individual contributor, through various bosses, I had seen good signs, I had seen bad signs, and the nerd in me, the continuous improvement, that's one thing that I do carry on from my manufacturing days, is always looking at like, how can we make things better and how can we get people to see that this is as valuable as the hard skills or, as, the other KPIs that people put out, that this is as important as anything else.
Okay, so is there anything from the article, any of those 5 points? We don't need to go through all of them, but anything that sort of stands out to you as like the thing that leaders do that just completely disintegrates a culture?
Yes, they hold themselves to a different standard. than they want their staff to be at. I think that is one of the biggest killers, is this idea of, oh, I'm the boss, and so, the rules are different for me than they are for you, and not having the respect. Like, I'm at this level, so what can you teach me? But I'll tell you what, I've learned things from, siblings that are half my age. So there's always something that you can get from other people, and, respect is earned. It's not just because of your title. I think that is really one of the biggest pieces for the article, that if people would switch that, it's a game changer.
Yeah, really lead by example.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that different workplaces have different cultures and such. So why do you believe workplace culture is often underestimated as a driver of organizational success?
Because it's not as tangible as, we saved $5,000. It's not as tangible as we put on this many, seminars, or the concrete numbers. And, for a long time in the old way of working, people really didn't value what they consider soft skills. But I think we're finally in the age where people are talking about engagement, because we're talking about burnout, because we're talking about the way that work has shifted. There's more appreciation for it. And, we actually have a class that we teach on workplace culture that people have been about, so building trust and doing these things over time. It seems simple, but we often forget about it in the exchange of, I just need you to give me this thing, and I just need to report this. It just hasn't been respected, but I think we're getting there.
Yeah, in my Women in Technology Infinity group, we started to call a lot of our soft skill programming power skills, just because the name switch just made people feel more empowered. So communication is a power skill. It's like
borrowing that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Leverage it as much as you like.
So I think we've talked a little bit about how leaders can sort of undermine culture, but how can they shape culture in a positive way rather than simply reacting to it?
I would say that one of the easiest ways that you can do it is start to over communicate. That's what I call it, because I think what we all tend to do as humans is say something once or twice and feel like everybody got it, feel like everybody heard it the same way and received it the same way, and then you can just move on. We often hear that in PSLA. Sometimes people will say, well, I told them. Like, how many times did you tell them? And then did your actions follow up with that? So over communicating, not just by using your words, but like showing that by your action, the thing that you said is really valid. So if I tell my team, for instance, I don't watch your status on Teams. I don't look to see if you're green all day, that kind of thing, right? I have to say that more than one time before they'll believe me if they've come from an environment where they were being watched all day. And I have to do that like through the proof, as opposed to, I got you, you were away for 15, you know what I mean? So there has to be that continuation of communication in every aspect.
That's a great example. The number of people that I've experienced that have come from more toxic cultures, their behavior in our culture, which I don't believe is toxic, they still act like they're in the toxic culture, like all the time. Like they're waiting to be reprimanded. They're waiting to be, and it's like, we don't do that here. Right. So it's that's really interesting way of looking at that. And if anyone who's listening or watching, if you're watching the status of your employees, stop doing it.
Please stop.
It's not necessary.
It's not an indicator of how productive somebody
I
is.
moved my mouse. Oh my goodness.
Right.
Like, don't do it. It's meaningless, and it'll just ruin your employees.
Yes.
So going back to the article, you mentioned that leaders need to live by example. And you just mentioned that wonderful example of not watching your team status, and how does that look like in practice? Do you have any other examples of what that looks like in practice of living by example?
Yeah, I think it's important to be open to the level that you can be, and to share your vulnerabilities, to share, that I don't know all these things, like not as just something that you say in practice. We've all heard leaders say, well, I don't know everything, but then their demeanor gives very much, I know everything, right? Yeah, we've been there. So to really say, I genuinely don't know, what do you all think? And take that feedback, and as well to say, I have little things that I need to learn as well, and to ask for feedback. What if we asked for feedback. What is working well, what is not working well, that is how you positively affect culture as well.
Okay. So before we started, we were talking a little bit about the leadership programs that we help facilitate. You, the Professional Staff Leadership Academy, and Candice and I are involved in the IT leadership workshop here.
Yeah.
One of the topics that I talk about in ITLW is leading through change. So I'd love to hear your ideas on like how do leaders maintain credibility in times of uncertainty or organizational change?
Yeah. I think, again, by being as open as you can be. There are things that you probably aren't going to be able to say as change is going on. But what does it hurt to tell people, I understand and I'm somewhat anxious about this as well. We're navigating. There are things that are being worked on that I can't share yet. As soon as I can, I will share those things. Here's what I can say. And also work with them and say, how can we best as a team or two people, how many ever it is, decide that we're going to thrive in this time of change and anxiety? So how can we flip the script and be proactive about it? But you have to get other people's input as opposed to, I've come up with this 5-step plan of what we will do, and I've solved all the things, right? When you get other people on board and from your openness, that really shifts the feeling.
Admitting your uncertainty validates their uncertainty.
100%.
Right? Yeah.
And they also feel involved in the process when they're giving their input of, oh, well, this is how I feel. What about these ideas? So.
And then you have to actually act on some of the things. So if there's things you can't do, say, I love that idea. That's not exactly going to work, but what it makes me think of is this. But this thing that you said over here, this actually, let's implement this in this way. So I really think there has to be proof that you are not only listening, but taking things on board.
Yeah, we talk a lot about, during the change piece of ITLW, we talk a lot about what people are losing. And like that we don't necessarily acknowledge people's loss in change.
Yes.
How have you dealt with that in your time?
I think, so one of the things that I try to keep in mind, it was one of the best things I learned at a leadership training, is that as the leader, you always have more access to the information and sooner. So you've made it through the grieving process and you've come to reconciliation much faster than everybody else. So then when you go to share that information and other people are they're shaky or they're upset. As leaders, sometimes we you should just need to get on board and it just needs to be fine. And it's but you forget that you already had your time to process and make it through. So really trying to always remember to put yourself in other people's shoes and keep that top of mind.
Empathy.
Yeah.
Yep.
I said it without saying it, right?
Yeah.
we got it.
Yeah.
Can you share an example of a simple recognition practice that has outsized impact?
And I've actually done this, and so I know it works. Just getting cards. You'll hear people say this, but get a card and write an individual note. So I did this, and it was individualized for each person on my team. But it's the fact that I thought about them outside of work, and I went and got the cards, and I hand wrote the card. And it wasn't way to go, team, exclamation point. It was an actual personalized message for each person. I think that in and of itself really affected everybody, but it was just one of the things that I did. It might have affected the person who appreciates words of affirmation the most. And so I try to change up how I do those things, but that is one that I know isn't
very
easy.
simple, doesn't take a lot of
Yeah, I love that idea. I did that. Normally I do some sort of holiday gift, whatever, for my team. And this past year, I actually sat down and wrote them individual notes and mailed it to their home addresses. And the number of people that acknowledged that and were super grateful for that.
Yeah.
I don't know that I'll ever not do it again because it was really impactful.
When I've been on the receiving end of that, it actually moves me so much. I've seen people either retire or leave, or they haven't even always been my supervisor, and they've sent a personalized note. And I was just You took the time to write this out.
In a world where we don't do it,
nobody does it.
Nobody
right?
does it, so
we're
it
all in
has
this
more
world of
impact. Absolutely,
the text message is the thing that we communicate with
thumbs
now.
up.
But the thumbs up, and,
the reactions to everything.
Exactly.
I'm guilty.
So
I love an emoji, but
It is.
but sitting there and actually doing the work of writing something to somebody, it stands out today for sure. So, kind of along those same lines, how do leaders learn what motivates and energizes the different members of their team? There's no magic wand, right?
There is no magic wand. There is no magic wand. I think you have to start by asking. I don't know why we're all so afraid to just point blank ask people, how do you like to be recognized? What hits the most for you? You can do it through, if that's too straightforward for some people, go get the book, 5 Languages of Appreciation. It's like the 5 workplace languages of appreciation, and use that as your excuse to have everybody take the quiz and find out what they're, how they best respond, right? That's an easy one. That's a soft one. But you have to ask. And then you have to also be an observer. So sometimes people will give you the easy thing, the thing that they think's the acceptable answer, right? They're like, is there a right answer to this? So this feels like a trick. But then just kind of observe. Often people recognize the way that they want to be recognized as well. So it's about really paying attention to people and putting that effort in, right? So beyond just the task-oriented things of the job.
How do you navigate people's preferences there, though? Because as a leader, I might say Joe likes to be recognized this way, and Candice likes to be recognized this way, but I'm publicly recognizing both of them in different ways, and the perception of that can be favoritism because of the way. So how do you navigate doing acknowledgement in different ways, in the way somebody wants, but in a way that everyone else can see when you do it?
I think that, again, it can be situational, right? So it can be that you do something like, as you're recognizing people, this time you do it in this way. Maybe everybody gets words of affirmation. And maybe another time it's through some kind of small token, a gift card or something like that, right? Because there are some people, like, if they like recognition publicly, there are other people who don't like that. I think you can switch up how you do it. I think, or as you're doing it separately, if you already have that baseline of an open discussion that, I'm really here to have the best workplace culture that we can, the best team culture that we can. And part of that is we're all individuals and we are not the same. So my team, we're a team of 4. We're a small team, but they are different and they like different things, but everybody already knows that. So if one person gets a card and the other person doesn't get a card at that time, they're not thinking, well, she's not thinking about me, because I've already said multiple times, one of my core values is fairness and integrity, right? And so I want to recognize you all, but I want to do it in the way that you best receive it. We've had those kinds of discussions. Just a quick snippet within an actual team meeting. And so it's not a surprise to anybody, and nobody feels like, oh, she got that and I didn't.
I'm glad you elaborated, even though I can make the assumption that would be the way that we do it. For our listeners and viewers, I'm pretty sure that they're really happy about that. So many leaders struggle with conflict. Why do you think difficult conversations are often avoided?
Well, because we all like to be liked, Candice.
Don't we all?
We all.
I love to be liked.
We all love to be.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I do too.
We all want to be liked, and everybody has this, I don't say everybody, a lot of us have a fear that difficult conversations lead to the erosion of the relationship. It's the end. It'll never be the same. And I think we have not been taught how to have difficult conversations as well. So there are some personality types that it's easier to have a difficult conversation. And there's some people, they're always going to tell you, it's fine, when they're like, it's not fine. It's definitely not fine.
So is there any sort of framework or approach that you use when you're kind of leading into a difficult conversation?
There is. So the first thing I like to do is figure out what is the thing that is going on, right? And kind of write it out and then figure out how to get my emotions away. So you cannot always address things in the moment, especially if you know that you will not come to it with any kind of peace, right? So I really figure out what it is, prepare myself to have a discussion. We're going to get to actual discussion in a second. So not just me telling them a thing, but an actual discussion, and then kind of prepare the space. So figure it out. Some people you need to have this discussion in person. That usually is the best, but there's some people that maybe that won't work. Maybe you do need to do it over the phone or something like that. But figure out the best way to do it when you won't be disturbed. And without emotion, say, these are the things that happen. This is really kind of where I'm feeling like there's a disconnect. And then the last step is the most important, and that is to actually wait for feedback. Like, let them answer. Let them ask any questions, go back and forth and figure out, because often it's an intent versus impact kind of situation. Now, sometimes it's not. Sometimes things have just gone awry. But a lot of times there could just be a miscommunication with the way that you're receiving something versus what somebody meant. And if you can just take the time without any of the emotion to have that discussion, it's not the end of the world. It clears it up. And then you're like, oh, now we know this about each other moving forward.
I really want to elevate that clarification you made about letting them respond and letting them give feedback, because it's not a difficult conversation unless you're both talking.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think a lot of times when we as leaders and managers approach a difficult conversation, we are so focused on this is what we're going to say to them.
Yeah.
And not necessarily even being open to, and they're like, okay, and then just like walk out of the room with their tail between their legs. That's not the intent of it, right?
That's not the intent of it. And for some people, that might mean that, you're asking questions and they might some people won't do well telling you right then. But you have to make it very clear, and you need to have established a pattern of, okay, if you would, please think about this and let me know however you want. If you want to email me back or if you want us to meet again, I'd love for you to really think about, what your responses are, what your questions are, and let's have a continuation of this, because I don't want it to just be me saying something. I really want us to be able to work better together in the future.
Yeah.
Let's lift the mood.
Yeah. Let's lift it. All right.
Okay. What leadership accomplishments are you most proud of?
Ooh. What am I most proud of? Honestly, I would say it is finding a career that I love and being able to lead the team that I do. We have a great culture amongst the four of us. Everybody really gets to bring their individual opinion, their creativity to it. And it's taken a lot of effort and a lot of learning along the way, but I've been very open and transparent about that. And I am proud of the fact that I've done it in that way, that I have not claimed to know everything, and that when I do mess up, I actually let them know, okay, I messed this up, that's on me, and not make any excuses for it. That is what I'm truly most proud of. I'm sitting in a good spot now.
Awesome.
It's a good feeling.
Yeah.
So if there's a new leader that's listening to this podcast or watching it, if they could implement just one habit tomorrow to become more effective, what would you say it is?
To solicit more feedback. That is the number one thing that you can do from the people you work with, whether it's the people that work for you or your peers or leaders. Get more feedback all around. And in a place where people know it's safe to give you the good feedback and the not so great feedback, because you don't know what you don't know, right?
How do you establish that so that they feel safe? Because I know there are people that I've asked feedback for, like, oh, I don't have anything to offer.
Right.
That's generally meaning they don't want to give me negative feedback.
Yes. I think you have to be consistent about it, about asking for it. And so you can't just ask a couple of times and then let it go. I think you have to keep asking. And I think you have to find different ways where people could submit the feedback in an anonymous way. Now, sometimes you need more people in order to do it. It can be harder if you only have one or two people, because I don't have the greatest anonymous tool for you. But, at the end of the year, the first year that I was a supervisor, I did an anonymous survey and had all of us respond to questions so that I couldn't tell who anybody was. to get feedback. I'm always trying to find different ways. Like I'll do a survey this time, or do an email. I had one person be the collector of the feedback. Like amongst the three of you, you're in charge. Figure out what your thoughts are, put it all together, figure out a way that I won't know. So I think you just have to keep being consistent and just try. If this way doesn't work, try another way. And try another way. And even that, the fact that you're willing to try so many things will prove to people that it's safe to give you the feedback because you keep trying.
Thank you.
So I really appreciate you coming today for
Thank
the
you for
podcast,
having
both for our
me.
listeners and viewers. So in the spirit of Candid Conversations, what's one thing that our listeners and viewers don't know about you that you feel comfortable sharing?
I had to think for a while to think of like a thing that I've never shared
this
before.
This is Chris's question.
This is my question. I love this question. Yeah.
But I found it. I'm pretty sure that I am one of the true pioneers of singing pop songs in an operatic style.
Oh,
Much to the dismay of my mother and my brother when I was a teenager. But, it was like, I could think of like Push It by Salt and Peppa. I turned that into an opera and I would just belt it through the house.
So I'm going to ask the question. Can we get a few bars?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
I'm imagining. No, it's
That's
there
fantastic.
for later, afterwards. I'll just think about it.
Yeah. So for our listeners and viewers, you can imagine Joy
Yes,
doing this.
please imagine that.
And if you become good friends with her later, maybe she'll share this special talent. But
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. That might be the most unique one we've gotten to
Yes,
date. So
I think
love that.
so.
Love that.
Thank you again.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank you again for
you.
coming today. This has been a great conversation.
Thank you for having me.